there was an opioid addiction involved. So, being quite young, I saw firsthand the very dark, shadowy side of pharmaceuticals. I honestly wanted to have nothing to do with that industry. It just wasn't a solution, and my family members were losing their battle. So I fell out of love with medicine. The most rebellious thing I could have done was sort of pick a different path. My whole family thought I was going to be a doctor. I went to an acupuncturist. I was just woken up to a whole new world of practicing medicine, a whole new way of observing and seeing and experiencing the body. I'd never been counseled on how my food might be affecting me in terms of inflammation and even depression. And while I went for the back injury, I opened up about the grief of losing my dad. I didn't realize we can look at this from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint. Everything is connected. Emotions are connected to certain meridians and organ systems, and it's going to manifest emotionally, physically. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. 2 years later, I went back to school and got a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine. I think we're entering the energetic age where we're also looking at ourselves differently as an energy body. It's a huge mindset shift. It takes a while for your brain to sort of rewire how it's understanding, the human design. It's imperative for your health and your happiness and for those around you and your close personal space to manage that energy body. And Qigong is a really wonderful, easy access practice. I would definitely suggest people check that out.
Welcome, Amanda Picken, to A Call to Healing. I'm so happy to interview you today, being one of my good friends. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Very excited to be here. Very excited for our conversation on A Call to Healing. Awesome.
Yay. So we'll start with your origin story, how who you are, where you're from, and then kind of where you ended up now, because I know it's a lot different than where you started. And then we'll go dive deep into what you do. But what's your story? How'd you get to where you are?
It's been a long and winding path, but to orient people, I am a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. So that involves acupuncture, herbal medicine, some body work like cupping therapy, and lifestyle coaching. And my practice is good body wellness. I've had my clinic in Austin, Texas for, I think, almost or 7 years now. So I've been practicing the medicine for close to 9 years, and I've had my own clinic for about 7 years here in Austin. And I did not see this path coming. A little bit about my background. I did grow up in a family that was involved in medicine. My father was a general practitioner. My mom was the office manager and had a nursing background. It's kind of all I ever knew. I grew up in a family practice doctor's office every day after school. That's where I went and did my homework. So I always thought I would become a medical doctor as well, an MD. But when I was in college, a few things happened that swayed me from that path. One of them being I had not one but two family members who were struggling with mental health, and there was an opioid addiction involved. So, being quite young, I saw firsthand the very dark, shadowy side of pharmaceuticals. And I honestly wanted to have nothing to do with that industry. It just wasn't a solution, and my family members were losing their battle. So I fell out of love with medicine. And the most rebellious thing I could have done was sort of pick a different path. My whole family thought I was going to be a doctor. And then I went and got a master's degree in interior design, which through everyone, I always had this creative, artistic side. And I turned my back on medicine. I got a master's degree in interior design in Florida at the time. And in my 20s, I took a job at a high-end luxury design firm in South Florida and was there for all of my 20s. But something else happened during that time. Um, I did lose my father in my 20s, and I suffered a bad back injury in my mid 20s. And I was really bent out of shape, coping with this back injury, coping with grief. There was really nothing the doctors had to offer me. And a fellow colleague at the design firm said, "Why don't you try acupuncture?" And I was willing to try anything and was open minded to it. I had had no exposure to holistic or alternative medicine despite being in a medical family. And I said, "What the heck? I'm at my wit's end." And that's how so many people find alternative medicine. That's how so many of my patients find me. The medical system just isn't working, or they've fallen through the cracks, or there's no obvious solution for them. And I went to an acupuncturist, and I was just woken up to a whole new world of practicing medicine, a whole new way of observing and seeing and experiencing the body. I'd never been counseled on how my food might be affecting me in terms of inflammation and even depression. Um, and I worked with an acupuncturist. Her name was Dr. Lippum in Sarasota Healing Arts. So big shout out to her for some time. And while I went for the back injury, once I felt comfortable with her, I opened up about the grief of losing my dad. And I didn't realize we can look at this from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint. Everything is connected. Emotions are connected to certain meridians and organ systems, and it's going to manifest emotionally, physically. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I became obsessed. I did my own reading and research. I got a lot of relief. The back issue resolved. And that was it. It took a couple more years, but probably 2 years later, in my late 20s, almost 30, I went back to school and got a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine. A lot of people don't know that's a 3 or 4 year program, and you get licensed by your state's medical board. So I'm licensed here by the Texas Medical Board. And my first internship as an acupuncturist was with a fertility clinic. So that became a really fun, exciting niche for me. I wasn't really looking for it. It was just an opportunity that sort of fell into my lap. And that continues to be one of my strongest niches, women's health and fertility. And here we are 7 years later, still practicing. Yeah, so that's a little bit about how I got here.
Amazing. And I've seen some pictures of you in China. That was part of your
Yes.
study. Was it part of the program or a separate program?
It was part of the program. So it was very cool. There was every other year, there was an opportunity to go to a sister school in China. So we had a good number of Chinese professors from the same region, Chengdu, and had a relationship with the university there. So we had a program where you could go spend a month at that school and shadow doctors in a hospital there. The traditional Chinese medicine is much more weaved in to their modern healthcare as well. There would be a hospital, and you could go to one wing where you might be having surgery or dealing with chemotherapy or something like that. But there's another wing where you could go get your Chinese herbs and acupuncture. And they had these incredible pharmacies with these fast pressure cookers, and you could submit a herbal prescription, and they could concoct it or decoct it for you within an hour, and you could pick up your herbal formula. It was an incredible experience to see the medicine in its home country and to see it operate more clinically in a hospital. I think in America we expect our acupuncture experience to be very zen and spa like, and so that was a big difference. There was nothing very zen about that setting, for better or worse. And then uh, just the sheer volume of patients they were seeing in the hospital, and herbalists there might treat 50 patients in an hour. And we would just be sitting behind the Chinese doctor, and the patient had 2 minutes to, spat out the problem. The doctor had 30 seconds to write out their custom herbal formula, and off they went. It was incredible. So you're sort of just thrown in. Some of the doctors spoke English. Sometimes we had a translator. They were super welcoming, and Yeah, definitely a highlight of the education for sure. So thank you for asking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know of anywhere in the U.S. that they modeled that at all, or is it have you only seen kind of the spa setting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So usually you see, and I want to wind that back a bit because there are definitely even clinics in Austin that feel medical. And I know acupuncturists here who operate out of a doctor's office, that's going to feel more clinical as opposed to a room where you might be getting a massage and there's something a little bit more spa like about that. So I think there's a spectrum. My personal practice, clinic, and treatment rooms fall, I think, somewhere in between. Um, but in terms of like operating in a big hospital setting, there are a few hospitals in the country that have a holistic alternative health department. I think they call it like a complementary and alternative medicine department, CAM, CAM, is an abbreviation used more commonly in the medical field or journals, CAM, complementary and alternative medicine. So we have seen it in a few hospitals, them developing those departments that are right there for the patients, but they are very few and far between here. Um, so I hope that that is changing, and I think it is. The integrative model is becoming the way forward for medical doctors as well. There is a demand for holistic care and integrative care, and I think medicine, modern Western medicine, is waking up to that. Yeah.
I think so too. Maybe it's just my on social media. It's just because it's showing me what I want to see. But yeah, I think people are waking up to okay, the food companies are in bed with the pharmaceuticals, or in bed with the medical, or
Yes.
in bed with the insurance. So it's like it's not making money for us to be well. So I think people are waking up to that.
Oh, yeah. There's been such an awakening, and we don't have to go down the rabbit holes, but the pandemic was a huge awakening. These issues are becoming political, so more people are talking about it mainstream. And modern medicine is a miracle. If you are in an emergency, if you need quick surgery, for accidents and extreme illness, but our food industry, our pharmaceutical industry, in terms of preventative health, preventative care, we're really set up to fail at this point in time. And I think people are waking up and will not just settle for that at this point in time. So I grew up in the household with a doctor, and I have the utmost respect for medical doctors. We need them, they're essential. But the system is very broken and has become, a bit twisted and backwards. And I think we're on the precipice of making a shift. And that means empowering yourself, right? And now it's easy to access more knowledge and education, and we have pioneers speaking out about this in all kinds of spaces, podcasting, social media. So I think we're going to be a more empowered generation that sort of take our health back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing really cool healing centers and wellness centers where there's all sorts of different modalities in this, under the same roof, almost like a preventative hospital, I guess you can say. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. And traditional Chinese medicine seems to be always there among the up and coming biohacking, whatever. It's always there. And I think it's because it's been around for thousands of years, right? I mean, there's a
Yeah. If
long
you're looking
history to
for
it.
like a lot of people in modern times are like, where, they want more evidence. And it's like, well, there's like 5,000 years of it standing the test of time. But sure, we can keep doing like uh, the labs and the research and whatnot. But it does seem to stand the test of time. Acupuncture definitively has been around for at least 3,000 years. Some believe there's evidence tracing back to more like 4,000 or 5,000 years. And it comes from, of course, China. And it's a beautiful medicine because, in a more spiritual or philosophical sense, ancient China is known for Taoism, And it's really the principles of that outlook of the universe and nature and how it all works. That's where Chinese medicine stems from. And so part of the education is getting, a little bit of a foundation in Taoism. And then through observation of natural laws and principles, the ancient Chinese masters took these more broad spiritual, we would maybe say spiritual or philosophical principles, and viewed them in the body, and then studied it to the point where it became a true science, and developed, the system of acupuncture and the theory of energy meridians. There's a pattern to energy flowing in the body, an intelligence about it, a predictable pattern. Of course, those patterns can get disrupted. And now we're kind of getting into a different part of the conversation. But to make the point, yeah, these ancient Chinese masters studied these laws down to a science and developed a medicine around it. And same with the herbal medicine. And it's pretty incredible. And to this day, these ancient Chinese herbs, some of them are even what modern day pharmaceuticals are based on. So sometimes modern day pharmaceuticals purely are man-made and chemical, but some of them stemmed from or are inspired from these Chinese herbs that we still use today.
Yeah, definitely. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah,
Chinese, but Amazonian, like all the plants of the earth, right? Have
all the plants.
healing.
And that's
Yeah.
what's cool. And I've started to appreciate more and more, but every ancient culture had a wonderful relationship or developed a plant medicine um, in a really advanced way. It's really, whether you're in South America or China or India or Europe, they all have an herbal pharmacopoeia. And modern medicine came around, and we think we lost the appreciation for that. And we don't want to lose that
Well, we
knowledge.
learned all the witches, right? So
Yeah,
kind of,
I know we persecuted all of the medicine carriers. And we almost probably did lose this incredible knowledge. And we probably still don't have it back today at the level, that it once was. So we do need new generations of, medicine carriers and healers to sort of reignite this passion and figure out their own way to work with these plants and techniques. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I'd be curious. I don't know. You might not know the answer to this, but because these are tiny, tiny little needles, right? Little pins or whatever you call them. Five
Uh-huh.
thousand years ago, how did they make like
So
needles?
that's a good question. So they were not using these like super refined stainless steel needles made in a factory. They were, once metalsmithing was around, they could use metal. They could use things like bone as well or shell. But I'm going to tell you, the acupuncture experience 3,000 years ago was probably a lot more intense than the acupuncture experience today, because those needles were not as refined as they are today coming out of a factory. Um, and to give folks an idea, like I have some needles that are so fine, they're almost as thin as a hair, and they're even bendable like a piece of hair. If I put it on your skin, you could like wiggle it around. They're that delicate. And then we have other needles that are slightly thicker, a little more stronger. They need to be able to go through a large muscle like your trap or your glute. So there's a range of lengths and sizes. But that's a great question. They had tools, but trust me, it would have been a more intense acupuncture experience 3,000 years ago. That's for sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness for modern technology with
Uh-huh.
ancient healing modalities. So you mentioned some of these meridians, energy centers, and some people may be familiar with chakras because they learned about it in yoga. But what is kind of the
Yeah.
difference between the Chinese sort of energy centers? And I'm asking this because I've learned from you through qigong some,
Qigong, which we'll
some
talk
of
about
this.
too.
Yeah. So yeah, can you just talk about that? What it is you're working with?
Sure. So, yeah, acupuncture is probably most famous for these acupuncture points that lie on these channels or meridians or rivers of energy coursing through the body. And a foundational concept you have to know, to sort of get that is the concept of qi. which a lot of people may have heard of. Chi is like a universal energy or life force, sort of flowing and animating everything. And it's a really foundational, philosophical, even spiritual concept, although modern, like quantum physics, is now sort of validating it as a scientific concept as well. But it's this idea that there is an energy flowing through everything, and perhaps the same energy keeping the planets in orbit, the same energy moving the currents and the tides in the ocean, is also the same energy moving through you. And if you see a commonality there, they all have pattern and rhythm and cycles. There's pattern embedded in this energy, there's intelligence embedded in this energy, and it flows through you in predictable patterns like circuitry. And each organ system, so Chinese medicine is famous for the 12 organ systems. So the ones you know, like heart, kidneys, stomach, gallbladder, liver, all of these organs. And each organ has its own sort of circuitry of energy. And the Chinese studied the body down to a science and mapped out this circuitry, much like the way your arteries and veins circulate into the arms and back to the torso, down to the legs and back to the torso, much like your nerves communicate in a circuit, getting feedback out and back in. This energy is also cycling through you in a similar way. It's just that we can't see it. If we dissect a human body, we don't get to like see these clear pathways. But I think we're in an age where we're waking up to the energetic body. We are more than just physical matter, both internally and externally. And the energetic flow in your body can be disrupted. It can be stuck. It can be stagnant. You can be deficient, lacking in it. You can be in excess of it. And my job as an acupuncturist is to diagnose, okay, where is the energy here stuck or stagnant? Are we deficient? Do we have liver qi stagnation, which might look like frustration or depression or severe PMS? Or do we have heart fire where there's like an excess, someone's hot, angry? Or are we dealing with, let me think of another common one, kidney yin deficiency. There's a deficiency in the kidney system. And when we lose yin, which is like that female component, a woman will experience that in menopause. And whether we're diagnosing qi, whether we're evaluating someone's levels of like yin and yang, it correlates really nicely to modern medicine and language as well. Yin and yang, female and male, estrogen, testosterone. So that's how we might be diagnosing hormones in someone, the same way you're getting labs and figuring out like, am I low in estrogen? Well, I would say you're low in yin. So back to these energy meridians, that's what we're paying attention to. Modern research is showing there's something really interesting we're finding out about the fascia system in the body. And in terms of acupuncture, like needling depth, a lot of times we're trying to just tap that like fascia system, getting past the adipose layer where there's really not a lot of communication happening there. It's not an entirely benign layer of the body, the fatty layer, but usually we're trying to get past that and we're tapping into perhaps the fascia or muscle. And we used to think fascia was just a connective tissue and that's it. Well, it turns out it is this like crystalline fiber and all kinds of communication is happening there. So we are also thinking about whether the fascia system has a lot to do with the concept of communication and intelligence in the body and chi, and is also following these like meridian pathways. So modern research and then the ancient outlook on it are both very cool, and it seems to be slowly sort of coming together. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
imagine it has to because I have seen that some insurance companies actually pay for acupuncture now.
Yeah, and acupuncture is now covered by some insurance companies. Sometimes they'll only cover it if it's for pain, but even insurance is waking up to it and honoring it as a valid way to treat real medical conditions. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need their permission to know that it's
No,
healing, but it is nice
but
when
it's,
the Western
yeah,
research supports it for that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful modern research validating that it is effective.
Now, when you're working on somebody and you know all this stuff, how do you know to even like? Is it with every point, or is it based on what they say or need? Like, how do you know and
Sure.
diagnose, and how do you, how do you do
That's
that?
a great question. Yeah, how do we come up with like a diagnosis and decide what
Yeah.
points to choose? And there's an art to it. Of course, we go to acupuncture school and get training, and um, and then you as a practitioner, there is sort of a, I will call it like an artistic um, and professional license to come up with a treatment plan. Of course, like with any practitioner. But we make a traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis based on observing and a really thorough intake. So your acupuncturist is going to ask you a ton of questions you'd expect, and then a lot of weird questions as well. We're always going to want to know, how's your temperature? Do you run hot or cold? Energy levels, sleep. Where are you holding tension, aches, and pains? Is your appetite good? Is your digestion good? We want to know if your bowel movements are good. And then there's observation, where we simple, does someone have a healthy complexion? Or is there a lot of redness in the face? Or redness, like, is there something literally manifesting or venting through the surface of the body? Or is there extreme pallor? Are they really pale? Does it look like, maybe circulation, blood isn't moving very well? Um, and then, any other obvious, presentation physically. And then we always want to, two things happen with most acupuncture treatments. We want to feel the pulse. And before there were blood pressure cuffs, practitioners would just put their hands on the pulse and we can literally feel how much tension is in the pulse. What is your heart rate? There's a lot of different qualities that can be felt in the pulse, and it's like a little insight to what's happening in your body. Is it slow? Is it rapid? Is it tight? Is it like a guitar string? And then an acupuncturist, many will want to look at your tongue. And the tongue is kind of an insight to your digestion. The tongue isn't always, it's sort of an in the moment look at what's happening. If you've had yogurt or a couple of beers, like you are going to have a thick tongue coating. So the tongue coating changes a lot. So it's kind of a quick look at what is happening right now in terms of digestion. There are more extreme presentations. People have mapping on the tongue or cracks on the tongue. But this is just giving you guys an example of some of our diagnostic tools. And once we've heard from you, we might make a diagnosis like, okay, we're dealing with liver qi stagnation. This person is stressed, irritable, she's having painful periods, and spleen qi deficiency or digestive qi deficiency. She's fatigued, her digestion is off, she's only having a bowel movement every other day. And that tells me I'm going to be choosing acupuncture points on the liver meridian and the spleen meridian, and there might be a few others to support that. And really, there's a spectrum. There's different schools of thought. Some people use very few acupuncture points in a treatment, two or three. Some people will load you up with 40. Most people fall somewhere in between. And I would say for your average acupuncture session, you might expect between like 12 and 20 points. Yeah. The treatment doesn't have to be symmetrical. I get that question a lot, but they frequently are. Or even if we're doing different points, we are going to keep you balanced with a similar number of points on each side. And then it's a passive treatment. You are just meant to receive. The acupuncture needles are retained for anywhere from 15 to like 25 minutes. And it is a chance for your chi to repattern. We're just giving your chi an opportunity to repattern with some of the directive your practitioner has offered through the acupuncture needles.
as you're putting the points in, sometimes there's like a little jolt, a jump, or is that part of the diagnostic of, is it very confirming for you when someone like jumps off your table when you poke them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we'll start with this. Everyone asks, does acupuncture hurt? And I want to say no, but there are sensations. And most of the sensations are very manageable. And I always um, guide people into it gently. If it's your first time, and most practitioners, I think, should do this, we're going to use the tiniest needle and we're going to go to a couple points that aren't famously strong and have you take a deep breath. And some points are so subtle, you won't even feel them. And most people are like, oh, that was it. They're almost like disappointed there wasn't a bigger, sensation or something. But to your point, yes, we will hit some points that are real zingers. I love my patients because they come up with all kinds of way to describe it, like, ooh, that was spicy. Um, and the sensation is usually pretty immediate with insertion and then it calms down. And, you might get something that does actually feel a little electric. And, or sometimes we'll hit a point and the sensation will like shoot down the leg, it's like down the channel. And that can mean, okay, we had some stagnation here. We've unblocked a point, sort of unblocked some energy flow. There are points that are just famously, sort of notoriously stronger. Um, and I also have people breathe through it. That way their body is sort of prepared and being invited to relax. And sometimes it does feel a bit like, oh yeah, we hit the right spot because we got a reaction there. But not every point will be that way. When we go into the deeper muscle layer, like if you're having a lot of trapped tension, this is a symptom that comes up every day, right? So many people have upper back trapped tension. Sometimes when we hit the deeper muscle layers, if we're actually trying to release a muscle, the muscle may actually spasm or flutter and literally sort of release. So you can have more than just sensations. The literal muscle will flutter, and you'll feel that an actual physical response to the needle. So there are a really big range of sensations, but most are really manageable, and usually it all comes down nicely. And acupuncture can be a wonderful time to just like drop in and meditate. And I walk in on people sleeping all the time. And I have the full spectrum of needle phobia. And I think everyone who's come in, even the people most, scared or apprehensive, has walked away feeling like, oh, okay, that was easy. I can do that again. Yeah. So if anyone is wondering about the sensation, you'll be just fine.
Great. Let's move on to the herbs. So herbs are a big part of traditional Chinese medicine.
Mhm.
When do you prescribe herbs? Yeah, what's going on with those?
Yeah. The herbal component is interesting. I have a love for it. I've always been drawn to, even as a kid, like herbal teas and making potions and, these kinds of things. But the herbal component can also be challenging because a lot of people are not very compliant. Like with many things, we've all tried supplements and tried something for a few weeks and drop it and this and that. So when do we bring herbal medicine in? So, um, herbal medicine can be wonderful at like supporting the work between acupuncture appointments. And they can be really wonderful. I use them the most, and this is just me in my personal practice, for hormonal balance and managing stress, turning more to like adaptogens. And within Chinese medicine, there are many adaptogenic type herbs that are becoming trendy, more commonplace with everyone. So I tend to go to the herbs to balance hormones and manage stress. That's when I use them the most. There are wonderful herbs for fighting off like a cold or flu. People don't tend to come in when they're like actively having a cold, so I don't find myself prescribing it. Those herbs are extremely bitter. All of the antiviral, antibacterial herbs. I mean, if you think you've tasted bitter, yeah. Um, So I don't get to prescribe those that often because people are usually staying home when they're like that sick. But there are some incredible formulas for fighting off cold and flu that should probably be more commonplace. They're just bitter, although you can take capsule, so you don't have to taste it. But the herbs I tend to work with are more neutral and sort of sweet and balanced. And they're really great for doing the work between treatments. And it can be a great option if someone realistically is like, I can only get to you twice a month, when ideally it'd be nice to work with someone weekly for a month or two to really move the dial somewhere. It's like, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks, but you're taking your herbs between now and then, and we'll check in and see how that's going. So it can be a wonderful complement to the work. And the herbs can stand alone too. And we're seeing Chinese herbs show up more and more in more like mainstream supplement formulas. Thorne, Orthomolecular, all the big sort of high-end supplement companies you would find in a practitioner's office. The Chinese herbs are showing up there more and more frequently too.
Yeah, for the information or tools people can use immediately just with this information, I know acupuncture, like you're not going to go poke yourself or anything, but are there any of these herbs that you would recommend without having a diagnosis, or is it really important that they're treating something? Is there,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to, yeah, maybe shift gears to things people can do, take away from this, where they can start bringing Chinese medicine into their life on their own. So we'll start here, Leah. Let's talk about the herbs. Like I said, this adaptogen class of herbs are meant to help people manage their stress and maintain stamina. And most of those herbs are pretty neutral in flavor and temperature. So in Chinese medicine, some herbs are bitter and cool in an extreme way. And when you take them, they may even cause, an upset tummy, but they're meant to. They're meant to purge you of a virus. And then in the other direction, we might have someone who's really old and frail and we need to really boost their yang, so we're using like something like cinnamon and it's hot and it'll literally make your face flush. But for the average person, these are too extreme. They can't be taken daily. But this class of adaptogens is pretty neutral and they're meant to help you manage stress and homeostasis. So this is a great class of herbs for people to experiment with on their own, and they're not going to be taking something that's too extreme in one direction or another. And I think everyone is talking about mushrooms right now. So the functional mushrooms, many of them stem from traditional Chinese medicine. Famously, the two most famous, cordyceps and reishi.
okay.
So you can find these really easily at, your health food store. Cordyceps is more about stamina and performance. You would might take that, to get through a tough day if you're an athlete. Reishi actually is in a very cool category of herbs called calm the spirit. So reishi is really meant to quiet the mind, soothe the nervous system, calm the spirit. It would be okay to take later in the day. It's not a sedative by any means. You could take it any time. Whereas cordyceps, you're really going to want to take in the morning to get you through your day. So cordyceps and reishi are becoming very popular and easy to find. Another one we're seeing a lot of is astragalus. This is an immune boosting herb. Um, Baiju is the Chinese name. I'm probably not saying the Chinese names quite right. It's a very, the language is very subtle and specific in how you need to deliver it. But astragalus is a wonderful herb, and we're seeing it in a lot more immune boosting formulas. I think Orthomolecular has a great formula called Viracid or Viracid. And if you're trying to, prevent a cold, or if you're surrounded by people who are getting sick and you don't want to, wonderful formula to take that has a couple of immune boosting Chinese herbs in it that I would consider adaptogens. Um, Rose, getting a little bit more delicate and feminine. There are quite a few flowers, more delicate herbs. Rose is a wonderful herb that's in so many traditions, pharmacopoeias. And rose is wonderful for balancing hormones. brightens the complexion. It's like a beauty tonic as well. It's easy to find rose tea. And another one that's become quite common is Dongui, which is Angelica. It's almost like a bark. It's a really kind of dense when it's like decocted. It's real sticky and sweet. Angelica is like the queen of the female hormonal herbs. In almost every female hormonal formula, you're going to find Angelica. And I am seeing it in more and more mainstream formulas too. So those are some standouts. Frankincense and myrrh, those are classics. Those are in the traditional Chinese formula as well for pain relieving. But I would say start with the adaptogens, the mushrooms, reishi and cordyceps. Astragalus is wonderful for boosting and maintaining your immune system. Rose and angelica are great for female health. And frankincense and myrrh and turmeric, of course, are the big pain relievers. So those are some classic ones that are easy to access without a practitioner.
Yeah, beautiful. Is the lion's mane
Yeah.
one? I see that one around a lot. Maybe more for brain health.
Which one?
Lion's mane.
Oh, lion's mane. Yeah, that one. Another functional mushroom, and it is really known for sort of like cognitive performance, focus. A lot of people are putting like lion's mane in their coffee or taking it with their coffee. So the functional mushrooms are a lot of fun. That's a safe place to start. The mushrooms are pretty neutral in flavor and texture. Um, so lion's mane for cognitive performance, cordyceps perhaps more for physical stamina and performance, and then reishi more for calming the mind and nervous system, calming the spirit. Modern research does show reishi has incredible anti-cancer properties. Almost all of them do. Those are a really good three to start playing with safely.
Okay. And then another tool people can start using sooner than later. Would you recommend they go find some qigong somewhere
Yeah.
or online or?
Yeah. So Melanie knows because she's taken my Qigong class many times. So let me just, yeah, Qigong. We talked about Qi, that concept earlier, the universal life force energy flowing through you. Then Gong means to work or cultivate. So Qigong is a practice, it's a movement, breathing, and mindful practice that's meant to work on or cultivate your Qi. And it's usually slow, gentle movements that invite the Qi to repattern back into coherence, to flow again smoothly. It looks similar to Tai Chi. If anyone has ever seen Tai Chi in a park, the slow moving martial arts, Qigong is easier to jump into. Tai Chi is like a dance, it's steps that have to be memorized. Whereas Qigong, you can jump right into it. There's a million YouTube videos, great for a beginner. So there's a movement practice called Qigong that's regulating and gently strengthening. If you start doing it daily, it'll change your life. It really shines with, regular practice. I love it. I teach it. And what I want people to sort of take away from that is you have to start thinking of yourself as an energetic body and as a field. Like you are more than just this physical body. You're an entire field of energy. And we have sort of lost the art of managing that. And keeping this energy system flowing will benefit you emotionally, physically, spiritually. So, practices like whether it's breath work or these intentional movements where you're inviting your chi to repattern, or thinking of yourself as more than just this physical body, sort of inflating your energetic field, structuring your energetic field. Um, I think that's so important. I think it's an art or an outlook on the human design we sort of lost, and we've rediscovered it. And I see people doing literal qigong or things that are clearly inspired from qigong all the time on social media now. And I think we're entering the energetic age where we're also looking at ourselves differently as an energy body. And it's a huge mindset shift. And it takes a while for your brain to sort of rewire how it's understanding, the human design. But it's imperative for your health, um, and your happiness, and for those around you and your close personal space to manage that energy body. Um, and Qigong is a really wonderful, easy access practice. So I would definitely suggest people check that out.
And one of the biggest things, one of the biggest takeaways, it was kind of like an aha in because you don't just teach it, you kind of explain it. But the three energy centers, the
Mm,
mind, the emotion, and the willpower. Can you explain a little bit? Because maybe even just one exercise they could do is to like just do
yes,
that one movement. Maybe that they can take
I'll
away.
explain that. And yeah, that'll be a wonderful way, yeah, concept to sort of end with. And we'll give you one move to take away. Because
Yeah.
honestly, sometimes that's all you need. But I'm glad you mentioned that because I think the chakras are, is it, I know what people say chakra, but I think it's more correct to say chakra. I'm learning how to pronounce that correctly. That energy, that concept of energy centers has become more and more common, especially with how common yoga has become, which comes from the Vedic traditions of India. And they also have an entire energetic view of the body. So when all of these ancient traditions have similar concepts and theories, in my opinion, just reinforces the truth there. And each one has refined it a little differently or has their gem that they've discovered. So a lot of people maybe are familiar with like the seven chakras, and there's more than seven, but the big seven. But in Chinese medicine, they also have this concept of like power centers that are even more foundational. And I think it can all be nicely layered. So in Chinese medicine, there's something called the three dantian, and dantian, Dantian, and that translates to, interestingly enough, elixir field. So these are three power centers. Uh, They are centers of alchemy, elixir field. They are your power centers that you are continuously drawing from. They can be cultivated. These are a little different than the chakras in that these are sort of constant sources of energy you are always drawing from. Whereas my understanding of the chakras is that these are a little bit more nuanced and they're meant to be like activated. Um, Whereas your dantian are sort of, you're always drawing upon them. So the big three, upper, middle, and lower. I'm pointing to my lower abdominal here, and thinking, feeling, willing, or acting. And these three centers kind of sum up the human experience. Our mind lives up here in the upper dantian, our heart center here in the middle dantian, and our lower area, the creative forces, the ability to take action in the world, closer down here to the gut and the reproductive organs. So in Chinese medicine, we it's very foundational, kind of focus on the big three power centers. And the lower dantian, the one in the lower abdominal area, just below your belly button, does get the most attention. Um, the upper dantian meditation, that's a wonderful way to get in touch with that space. The middle dantian, the heart feeling, and Joe Dispenza, these people are talking about heart brain coherence. So we want our thoughts and our feelings to sort of be in coherence. But then taking it a step further, we do need to then effectively take action in the world and have an impact in the world. And that's your lower dantian, your will force. So qigong is all about cultivating that will force. The lower dantian is where you're going to like store your energy. It's where you're going to draw from. And qigong frequently is about cultivating the lower dantian, and a wonderful practice to center yourself. Or this is a wonderful thing to do after you've exercised and you've kind of, drummed up a bunch of energy in the body, you're flowing, buzzing. Well, we want to always store any extra energy in the lower dantian, or if we want to get centered, just taking a big inhale and lifting hands above the head, And as you exhale, bringing hands in front of the body and then bringing them down to just below the belly button, pausing at the lower dantian, going for another round, big inhale in, knowing you're aligning your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, a little bit more spiritual or esoteric or woo woo. We can do it again, knowing we're aligning our light, our love, and our will forces. And just these inhales, inhaling up and around and exhaling down the center line is a wonderful way to regulate yourself, regulate your chi, and get in touch with these three power centers. And I think just awareness of them. That's step one, just knowing they're there and knowing these are your power centers. That right there is a mindset shift and a game changer. And then you can get more and more into playing with how you cultivate those and draw from those. And you can layer in the chakras and then get even more nuanced and layer in the 12 acupuncture meridians. And it works really beautifully together.
Yes, beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. And when you
Yeah.
come down into the will center, you're actually putting your hands on the body, right? At the
Oh,
come
you
down.
don't need to.
Okay.
You can just,
Beautiful.
I'm just kind of bringing them a couple inches in front of the face, being in touch with that sort of center line. But at the very end, after you've maybe done 3, 6, or 9 inhale and exhale, cycles,
Mhm.
you might end by putting your hands on your lower dantian and just taking a moment with your eyes closed to seal in the practice, to be in touch with that power center. That is a very common way martial artists will end their martial arts practice. You will see that a lot. So, yes, thank you for mentioning that. Once you've done a few inhale, exhale rotations, end with your hands on your lower abdominal center, get in touch with that seat of power, and then you can exhale and go about your day. Uh-huh.
Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share? And then do you want to share if people want to reach out to you, find you, learn from you, visit you? Where can they find you?
Um, I loved this conversation. Thank you. You had wonderful questions. I feel like we covered a lot. I just hope it helps people understand traditional Chinese medicine more, maybe helps them think outside the box of how to care for themselves and how to think about themselves as an energetic being. And if anyone wants to reach me or get in touch, I am located in Austin, Texas. My practice is Good Body Wellness. My website is goodbodywellness.com, just all one word. And I'm on Instagram, goodbody_wellness. Pretty easy to find me once you find the website, all kinds of ways to reach me. So feel free to reach out with any questions or if you'd like to get in touch. But I think we covered a lot. Thank you, Melanie.
It was perfect. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. It was so good to spend this time with you. Glad you're in Austin.
You too.
Because I'm in Austin, and we're friends.
I know. We'll have to go meet up in real life.
That's right.
Yes.
All right. Have a
Take
good.
care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You have been listening to A Call to Healing. I hope today's conversation with Amanda Picken offers a new perspective on medicine, emotion, and the body's capacity to return to balance. To learn more about her work, visit our website at goodbodywellness.com or explore the offerings of traditional Chinese medicine in your own community. A Call to Healing is sponsored by Senavida, a platform helping practitioners spend more time in service and less time in the back office. I'm Melanie McDaniel, and I'll see you next time.